welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a stained glass tree, which is going to be tree number 1. And we're going to use fabric over a styrofoam form. Now I'm going to be making a bunch of different Christmas trees this season. And the first thing you always need to do is prepare the form you're going to make your tree on. I bought these styrofoam tree forms, and I'm going to put it over a angle bracket that is mounted to a piece of melamine or plywood. And then I'm going to wrap the styrofoam in fabric that you saw. Now, right now, I am getting my glass ready to use. I'm using mosaic glass shapes for the glass on this particular one. Now, you can buy mosaic shapes in triangles, rectangles, squares like this one, and then I just foil them. So they're about 1 centimeter, one of the sides is about 1 centimeter, and I think the triangles are a little bit longer than that. And they're pretty accurate, and no matter what company you get them from, they seem to be the same size. So it's a pretty basic size, and they're all kind of interlocked together, so that's kind of cool. Now I'm using 7/32 inch foil. I'm using black backed because I like to not have any shine on the inside once I'm finished. And I burnished it all the way around so it's nice and smooth. So here again, you just want to wrap it. And what I do when I'm wrapping these is I like crease them in the corners as I go around, and that makes nice sharp corners. So for this particular project, I actually use the full width of the 7/32 inch foil. So I'm actually wrapping around the pieces completely. Now you don't have to do that. You could use like half the width that I have in some of my other projects and just done the edge and not wrapped around at all. So it really depends on what the final look you want is. Now I'm going to wrap the form with wire, and I'm going to solder the glass. So what I did was I put one of those macrame hoops that I've talked about before. They come in all different sizes, or you could use just a piece of wire. And I use that at the bottom, so it's a nice, perfect, strong circle. And I wrap that circle with the foil so that I can solder to it. Because if you just use the regular macrame circles that you buy, solder probably won't stick to them because they're usually some kind of metal alloy that is just not compatible. Now I am using 16th gauge bare copper wire and making like a coil all the way around because I wanted to have like this uneven line just kind of spiraling up the Christmas tree. So I did that, and as you can see, I have some push pins that I used to hold the copper coil at about the right place. So that's what's nice about having a styrofoam tree to start with, is that you can stab it with pins or push pins, and you get to hold everything in place as you're working. So whatever you wrap your tree in should be something that a pin can go through. Now some of the other trees that I will show you later on in this series that I use different types of silicone, the thumbtacks do go in easier than fabric, because at least the thumbtacks push pins that I use are not, extremely sharp and pointy. I mean, they're pointy, but they're not really, really sharp. So they don't go into the fabric that well. So you don't want to put like tons of layers on fabric. Basically, the fabric is there to help it so that when you heat up the solder, when you're actually doing the soldering, you're not going to melt the styrofoam tree. Because as you can imagine, styrofoam, melts really, really easily. So yeah, you wanna protect it with something. So it's going to be silicone, or it's going to be fabric. It's going to have to be something that you put over a styrofoam form if you're going to use it. I mean, you could even use paper, I guess, if you wanted to. You could use like a couple layers of paper between the styrofoam tree and your project. That would probably work okay. So you don't have to, invest a lot in this, but I'm just giving you different ideas of what you could do and what you could use. I'm using a gel flux. You can use liquid flux if you'd like to. I kind of like the gel flux better than the liquid because it doesn't run as much. It just kind of pretty much stays where you put it. Paste flux is also another thing that you could use, but that's just a little bit thicker, so it's doesn't just paint on as easily, I guess you can say. So as you can see, I'm also wearing gloves. Now I like to use silicone gloves because silicone keeps the heat from like burning you. So if you drop a piece of solder on your hand, you don't get burned as quickly or as easily as if you weren't wearing any kind of gloves. And the silicone gloves are nice because they're really tight fitting. So you have a lot of that textile control still. It's not like wearing one of those more clumsy insulated gloves. So and I've used the same gloves like for 5 or 6 projects. So it's amazing how strong some of them are. And obviously when you buy them, you're going to find some brands are, a little bit stronger than others. So I am, as you can see, I'm just painting on kind of the flux and then basically tacking the shape on as I go. Now I like to make piles and piles of different colors and shapes of these mosaic tiles so that when I'm doing a project like this, I can choose what works best. So, and you may find that they're a little bit different than each other. They're not completely symmetrical. So you may find one square is a little bit bigger than another. So you might have to mix and match as you go. Obviously for this project, I am using greens, oranges, and yellows. So you can use all different colors if you want to. I decided I wanted to kind of limit the palette for this particular tree and have it, some kind of version of your basic Christmas colors. So that's what I'm doing. Now, I decided that for this particular tree that I'm making, I am going to have holes in between the different shapes. So I will not fill in all those gaps that you see. So some gaps I'll fill in if they're nice and small, but I will also have basic gaps left. I do have sometimes when I make different projects, I decide that no gaps are going to be there in the final project, and then I fill every gap that there is with either the solder or with some extra foil and then the solder on top of that. So I'm just basically trying to just hold them in place at this point. I will go by afterwards and do the rest of the solder joints so that it's stronger. This tree actually turned out to be pretty strong compared to some of the trees that I have in this series. This one stayed together quite nicely. But see, you can see that this particular shape that I'm doing right now, I'm doing kind of a rhombus or diamond shape and then a square next to it. So you could do whatever you want to. You could also make your own shapes, of course. You can either use your regular glass cutter or your ring saw to make your own shapes. You don't have to buy them. It's just kind of handy to buy them already made. They're not overly expensive, and they will all be kind of consistent. At times, I would get to the end or a corner and I would not have the right size piece, so I would have to either cut one of the ones that I have or cut them myself. And I actually, when I was making this, I did run out of some colors, even though I thought I had just tons of these little squares and triangles. But I had to go and cut some squares and triangles out of regular flat glass because I did need just a couple more. So I was just amazed because I really thought I had like just gobs of it. So it does take, literally hundreds of little squares and triangles to do a project like this. And yeah, each piece, when I did time them at one point, it took me about a minute and a half to foil each little triangle or square and smooth them down. So that's a lot of time, to get these little pieces to be workable. The nice thing about having small little tiles like this to make a project is that obviously when you're going around a curve like this, you're not going to be able to use big pieces of sheet glass anyway, because you're going to have kind of small pieces of sheet glass because the curve is so great, because it's such a small little tree that you really need to work with little pieces anyway. And yeah, these pieces are probably smaller than you probably need to use. It's just kind of a nice size because you can purchase them already done. That whitish piece of fabric that I was just dealing with is a silicone mat that I'm using underneath my work table so that it keeps my table clean. So basically, yeah, I just kind of went around. I would do one color for a while, and then I would decide, oh, I wonder what I want to do in the next area. And I tried to make the colors, like if I just had a bunch of light yellow, I would then put something contrasting with it. What I'm doing, as you can see, sometimes I'm like reaching on the table to get a piece of solder. You don't, when you're holding one piece of glass with one hand and you're, you can try to use pins like I just did. It's just easier to just use your solder iron and just kind of scoop up a scrap or just a little bit of solder from the ground. As you can see, I did some more rows right there. Now I'm going to be filling in some of the seams that I hadn't done before. I decided that this particular tree is going to be patinaed in copper. So if I miss some of the copper, if I don't tin it all, it's already copper colored and it'll end up being pretty much the same color as the copper patina. So that's okay. So basically what I'm really worried about is any unsightly globs I want to get rid of. I want to make sure that I have the seams done, definitely. And if I happen to see some areas that has bare copper, I will put some solder on that also. But I'm not as worried about the bare copper foil being covered because of the fact that, I'm going to patina it in the same color. And I'm sorry this particular video keeps going in and out of focus. That's because when my hands get close to the camera, it tries to focus on the hand, not the work surface. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So yeah, because I am going like at a slant and going, doing these swirls going up the tree, there are points when I couldn't like continue the same pattern and I had to add some little pieces at the bottom. Now I'm trying to take it off the angle bracket and then pull the triangle out. And yeah, it sticks a lot more than when I did the silicone ones. So I ended up like, just kind of pushing the tree um, out the end. But it is definitely removable. So that wasn't that bad to pull it apart. And it came out quite nice. And it's quite pretty. I like it. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I did turn it over at one point and make sure that the inside didn't have any terrible globs. And I also added some more pieces, like you can see I'm doing right now. I'm adding some more pieces to the top to make it kind of finish off the top of the tree there. It's kind of hard sometimes to figure out how to finish the top off. Now, I am going to be making a star in a couple minutes to put at the top, but still, you got to figure out, okay, well, the star is going to go up here, but I gotta finish it off somehow. So I kept adding pieces to make it kind of continue. And hey, it's a piece of art, so you can decide how you want to finish it. There's no rule that says how you have to do it. And one thing about triangles and squares is if a square doesn't fit, a triangle probably will. So that's still kind of cool to have this assortment of pieces that you can use for this, or choices. Yeah, it didn't come out terribly straight up and down. I don't know why. It's a little bit tilting tree, but if you get a regular real Christmas tree, it's going to probably tilt a little bit one direction. So I'm fine with that. Now, number 3 is make the star topper with wire and crystal. So I used some crystals. Like I like to have lots and lots of different choices of crystals. And all these crystals are clear or AB crystals, and I have foiled all of them. So I can choose what crystal fits where. So I bent some copper wire, I think it was 14 or 16 gauge copper wire, into a star shape. And then I am soldering a crystal into the middle. So I had to choose, well, what crystal is going to fit the best in my space. So that's the one I decided. And then I decided I'd use these like teardrop type ones that are kind of AB. So they have this aurora borealis coating on it. So they kind of change color a little bit as they're twinkling up there. And I'm decided how they're going to go on. And now I'm going to try to solder them on. Now, of course, it's not like a perfect even meeting of the different pieces of glass. So yeah, I'm soldering them, but there's going to be gap A's. But well, that's fine. I'm fine with that. It'll work. Now I'm going to attach the star, and then I'm going to patina it. So I have this cute little star that I have, yes, washed, and I finished the star, and I'm putting it on top of the tree and trying to figure out, okay, well, how is it going to solder on? I need to make it kind of in the center and kind of straight up and down. And I'm going to solder this star to any spot that I can. So, because it's not going to be all that strong, because I'm actually soldering it to just like a little bit of foil that's been wrapped around a little bit of glass. So I have to have lots of points of attachment. So I'm going around and attaching it wherever I can. Now I have actually already patinaed the tree itself at this point, and then I decided to add this particular star. That's why the tree itself looks more coppery. And in order to make them solder together. I did have to add flux, of course, but I did have to heat it a little bit more, maybe a little bit more than normally, to try to burn through the patina or something, so that it attached. But as you can see, it's now attached, and because I had decided earlier that it's okay to have gaps and holes in this design, in this tree itself, I'm not worrying about little holes. So now I'm going to add some fairy lights, and I'm going to enjoy. So there's a whole bunch of fairy lights I just plopped. I shoved them all the way up to the top, and then I just let them coil at the bottom. And here's my finished tree, and he's sparkling. He's really cute. I really like this little tree. And of course, you can get fairy lights that are in all different colors. These are a little bit yellowish. You can get them, white, colorful, ones that twinkle, all different types. Your fairy lights can also be USB powered or battery powered. So this is a bunch of trees that I'm making, and please subscribe and check out the next trees in the series. And all of these trees will be highlighted in separate videos. Thank you.